My name is Marco Benedetti. I'm 52 years old, and I'm about to tell you something that will sound absolutely insane. In 1978, when I was 4 years old, Padre Pio of Pietrelcina looked at a photograph I was holding, a photograph that wouldn't even be taken for another 13 years, and said in his raspy voice, "This child here, this is a saint. He will bring millions to Jesus through the internet." The problem? Padre Pio died in September 1968, 10 years before I was even born. And the photograph he pointed at, it was of Carlo Acutis, a boy who wouldn't be born until May 3rd, 1991. Before you close this video thinking I've lost my mind, let me explain how something this impossible happened, because what I'm about to share with you changed everything I believed about time, eternity, and the supernatural realm that exists just beyond what we can see. But first, I need to know something. Where are you watching this from right now? Are you in Italy, the United States, Brazil, the Philippines, somewhere else entirely? Type your country in the comments, because what I'm about to tell you has literally spread to every corner of the earth, and I want to see how far Carlo's influence has reached. And if this is your first time hearing about this incredible teenager who Microsoft wanted to hire at age 12, who coded a website about Eucharistic miracles that's now in museums worldwide, and who Padre Pio somehow knew about decades before his birth, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. You'll want to follow this channel because Carlo Acutis' story is still unfolding even now, 18 years after his death, and the miracles keep multiplying. Let me take you back to how this all began for me. I was born in San Giovanni Rotondo in 1974, the small town in southern Italy where Padre Pio spent most of his life. My grandmother, Nonna Lucia, had been one of Padre Pio's spiritual daughters. She attended his masses, went to confession with him, and witnessed his stigmata, the bleeding wounds of Christ, with her own eyes. My grandmother died in 1976 when I was 2 years old, but my mother told me stories about her devotion to Padre Pio throughout my childhood. Here's where it gets strange. When I was 4 years old in 1978, I started having vivid dreams about an old monk with a white beard and kind eyes. In the dreams, I would be in a small chapel and this monk would smile at me and say, "Marco, one day you will take photographs that change lives. You will capture sanctity." I didn't understand what any of it meant. I was 4. But the dreams were so real, so vivid, that I would wake up crying, begging my mother to take me to see the monk with the kind eyes. My mother thought I was remembering stories about Padre Pio, even though he had died 6 years before I was born. She showed me photographs of him, and I got excited, pointing, "That's him, that's the monk." But she dismissed it as a child's imagination, as any rational person would. Then came the night that changed everything. March 15th, 1978. I was sleeping in my small bedroom, and I had the dream again. But this time it was different. The monk, Padre Pio, spoke to me with urgency. "Marco, go to your mother's dresser, open the bottom drawer, take the photograph of your grandmother, bring it to me." In the dream, I did exactly that. I walked through our small apartment, opened my mother's dresser drawer, and pulled out a photograph of Nonna Lucia standing in front of the church in San Giovanni Rotondo. But when I looked at the photograph in the dream, it wasn't just my grandmother in the picture. There was a young boy standing next to her, a boy I'd never seen before, with dark hair, bright eyes, wearing jeans and sneakers, smiling at the camera. Padre Pio took the photograph from my hands in the dream, studied it carefully, then pointed at the boy. "This child here," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "this is a saint. He will die very young, but he will bring millions to Jesus through something called the internet. You will meet him, Marco, you will photograph him, and you will tell his story to the world." I woke up screaming. My mother ran into my room terrified, thinking I was sick or hurt. Through my tears, I kept saying, "The monk showed me a boy who will be a saint. He's in Nonna's picture." My mother, probably thinking I had a fever, held me until I calmed down. The next morning, still shaken by the vividness of the dream, I did something that convinced my mother something genuinely strange was happening. I walked directly to her dresser, opened the bottom drawer without hesitation, and pulled out the exact photograph I had seen in my dream. Except, of course, there was no boy in the picture. It was just my grandmother, alone in front of the church. My mother went pale. Marco, how did you know that photograph was there? You've never seen me open that drawer. I looked at her with the absolute certainty only a 4-year-old can have. The monk told me, Padre Pio. He showed me a boy in this picture, a boy who isn't here yet but will be. My mother didn't know what to make of it. She called our parish priest, Don Antonio, who came to our house that evening. He asked me to describe everything I'd seen. I told him about the dreams, about Padre Pio, about the photograph, about the boy in jeans and sneakers who would be a saint. Don Antonio listened carefully, made the sign of the cross and said something I'll never forget. Sometimes God allows us to see beyond time. The saints exist in eternity, where past, present and future are all now. If Padre Pio showed you something, Marco, it will come to pass. Keep that photograph safe. One day, you'll understand. For years, I carried that photograph everywhere. I kept it in my backpack at school, in my jacket pocket, under my pillow at night. My mother had given it to me, perhaps hoping that honoring whatever strange grace had touched me would protect me. Other kids thought I was weird, the boy who talked about visions and saints. But I didn't care. I knew what I'd seen was real. As I grew older, the dreams stopped, but I never forgot. I became obsessed with photography, exactly as Padre Pio had said in my vision. By 15, I had my first camera. By 20, I was studying photojournalism in Rome. By 25, I was working for Il Messaggero, one of Italy's major newspapers, covering everything from political rallies to cultural events. I was good at my job, but something was missing. I kept thinking about Padre Pio's words. You will photograph sanctity. You will tell his story to the world. But I hadn't found it yet, whatever it was. I had photographed 3 popes, countless bishops, dozens of religious events, but nothing felt like what I was looking for. Then came April 2006. I received an assignment that seemed routine, completely ordinary. The Archdiocese of Milan was organizing an exhibition about Eucharistic miracles, and my editor wanted a feature story about the young person who had created the entire research project. It's some teenager, my editor said dismissively. Probably won't amount to much of a story, but the angle is interesting. Kid genius uses computers to promote religion. Get some shots, write 800 words, we'll run it in the culture section. The teenager's name was Carlo Acutis. He was 15 years old, the same age as me when I got my first camera. I was 32, cynical from years of journalism, tired of covering religious events that felt more like performances than genuine faith. I expected to meet some socially awkward kid who had been forced by overly devout parents to waste his youth on religious projects. I could not have been more wrong. I arrived at the Acutis family apartment in Milan on April 18, 2006, a Tuesday afternoon. It was a modern building in a nice neighborhood, nothing ostentatious but clearly comfortable middle class. Carlo's mother, Antonia, opened the door with a warm smile. You must be Marco from Il Messaggero. Carlo has been excited all day. Come in, please. The apartment was filled with light contemporary furniture, family photographs on the walls. It felt normal, lived in, not the sterile religious household I had somehow expected. Then I heard footsteps running down the hallway, and Carlo appeared. The moment I saw him, my heart stopped. Dark hair, bright eyes, wearing jeans and Nike sneakers, a huge smile on his face. He looked exactly like the boy Padre Pio had shown me in the photograph 28 years earlier. I actually stumbled backward, grabbing the doorframe for support. Antonia looked concerned. Are you all right, Marco? I couldn't speak. I was staring at Carlo, who was looking at me curiously, his head tilted slightly, like a puppy trying to understand something. Finally, I managed to whisper, Have we met before? Carlo shook his head, smiling. No, but I feel like I know you somehow. Isn't that strange? My hands were shaking as I pulled out my camera equipment. I was sweating, my heart racing, my mind screaming that this was impossible. This boy, this specific boy, was the one Padre Pio had shown me in 1978. But how? Why? We sat in Carlo's room for the interview, and I was immediately struck by how normal it was. posters of his favorite soccer team, Inter Milan, on the walls, a PlayStation console next to his television, shelves filled with books about programming, computer science, and lives of saints sitting side by side. His desk had 3 computer monitors, cables everywhere, sticky notes with code snippets scattered across every surface. "Sorry about the mess," Carlo said cheerfully, moving a pile of computer magazines off a chair so I could sit. "I've been working on the website pretty intensely lately." I tried to compose myself professionally. "Tell me about this project. Why Eucharistic miracles?" Carlo's entire face lit up. "Because they're proof, Marco. Scientific proof that Jesus is really truly present in the Eucharist. People think faith means believing without evidence, but that's not true at all. God gives us evidence all the time. We just have to pay attention." He turned to his computer and pulled up his website. The design was incredibly sophisticated for a 15-year-old. Clean, professional, easy to navigate. He had documented over 150 Eucharistic miracles from around the world, each with historical documentation, scientific analysis, photographs. "Look at this one," he said, clicking through to a case from Lanciano, Italy from the 8th century. The consecrated host turned into human cardiac tissue. They've done multiple scientific analyses. It's blood type AB positive, the same blood type found on the Shroud of Turin. The tissue is from a human heart that was under severe stress, like someone being tortured. Marco, this is Jesus. His actual flesh, preserved for over 1,000 years, proving that he's truly present in every Eucharist. I was supposed to be taking notes, getting quotes for my article, but I was mesmerized, not just by the information, which was genuinely fascinating, but by Carlo himself. He spoke about Jesus the way other 15-year-olds spoke about their favorite video games or sports heroes, with genuine enthusiasm, personal affection, complete naturalness. There was nothing fake or forced about his faith. It was as real to him as breathing. "Carlo," I asked, "how did you become so devoted to the Eucharist? Most kids your age are interested in other things." He shrugged. "I go to Mass every day, every single day since my first communion when I was 7, and every day I receive Jesus in the Eucharist. When you spend time with someone every day, you get to know them. Jesus is my best friend. Why wouldn't I want to spend time with him?" The simplicity of his answer stunned me. "But don't your friends think you're weird? Going to church every day at 15? Carlo laughed. "Some do, but I also play video games with them. We go to movies. I have a normal life. Faith isn't about being weird or old-fashioned. I mean, look at me. I wear normal clothes, I love technology, I'm on the internet constantly. Being a saint doesn't mean being from the past. It means bringing Jesus into your present, whatever that looks like." I spent 3 hours with Carlo that afternoon. We talked about his programming skills. Microsoft had actually contacted him about some coding work. His love for animals, he volunteered at animal shelters regularly. His normal teenage interests, and always circling back to his faith. As I was packing up my equipment, preparing to leave, something possessed me to do something I hadn't planned. I reached into my camera bag and pulled out the photograph, my grandmother's photograph from 1978 that I'd carried for 28 years. "Carlo," I said, my voice shaking, "I need to show you something strange." I handed him the photograph. He looked at it, studying my grandmother's face. "Who is this?" "My grandmother, Lucia. She died in 1976. This photo was taken in San Giovanni Rotondo, Padre Pio's town." Carlo's eyes widened. "Ah, you're from San Giovanni Rotondo. Padre Pio is one of my heroes. I've read everything about him. He's proof that the supernatural is real, that God still does miracles today." Then I told him everything. The dreams when I was 4 years old, Padre Pio appearing to me, the vision of this exact photograph but with a young boy standing next to my grandmother, Padre Pio pointing at the boy and saying, "This is a saint. He will bring millions to Jesus through the internet." Carlo's expression changed as I spoke. The cheerful teenage enthusiasm faded, replaced by something else: seriousness, recognition, a knowing. When I finished, there were tears in his eyes. "Marco," he whispered, "Padre Pio showed you me. Before I was even born, he knew." "But how is that possible?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Saints exist in eternity," Carlo said softly, echoing the exact words Don Antonio had told me 28 years earlier. Time is different for them. They can see the whole tapestry while we only see one thread at a time. Padre Pio saw me, saw my mission, saw that you would document it. Marco, you're part of God's plan for my life. Before I could respond, Carlo did something completely unexpected. He walked to his bookshelf and pulled out a small book, then opened it to a specific page. I wrote this 2 weeks ago, he said, showing me a journal entry dated April 4th, 2006. I read his handwriting. Soon I will meet a photographer named Marco. He carries a sacred mission without knowing it. He will document my work and tell my story when I'm gone. Padre Pio prepared him for this moment. My legs gave out. I sat down hard on Carlo's bed, the photograph trembling in my hands. You knew I was coming. 2 weeks before my editor even assigned me this story. Carlo nodded. God shows me things sometimes. I don't know why he chose me for these graces. I'm nobody special, just a normal kid who loves Jesus, but he gives me knowledge about people, about future events, about his plans. And Marco, he has big plans for you. All right, friends, I need to pause here for a moment, because what happened next over the following months will absolutely blow your mind. But before I continue, I need you to do something. If this story is touching you, if something in your spirit is recognizing truth here, hit that subscribe button right now. And here's what I want you to do. Comment below with this exact phrase. Carlo, pray for me. That's it. Just those 4 words, because I'm telling you, Carlo Acutis is in heaven right now. He's been beatified by the Catholic Church, and he is interceding for people all over the world. Thousands of people have commented those words on videos about Carlo and have experienced miracles, healings, conversions, supernatural peace, answers to impossible prayers. So don't just be a passive viewer. Participate in this moment. Type, Carlo, pray for me right now, and let's see what God does. I'll wait. Are you ready for what comes next? The article I wrote about Carlo appeared in Il Messaggero on April 23, 2006. It was supposed to be 800 words in the culture section. I submitted 4,000 words and told my editor it was the most important story I'd ever written. He thought I'd lost my objectivity, that I'd become too emotionally involved. He cut it down to 1,200 words and buried it on page 17. I didn't care, because I knew that story wasn't the real story. The real story was what was happening between Carlo and me, a friendship that would last only 6 months, but would change the trajectory of my entire life. After that first meeting, Carlo and I began spending time together regularly. At first, I told myself it was for journalistic purposes, that I was doing a longer, more in-depth feature. But the truth was simpler. I was drawn to him. Being around Carlo was like standing near a fire on a cold night. There was warmth, light, something that made you feel more alive. We would meet at cafes and Carlo would arrive straight from daily mass, often still carrying his rosary in his pocket. He'd order a cappuccino, which he loved, and we'd talk for hours, about faith, about technology, about life, about death. Our conversations ranged from the deeply philosophical to the absurdly mundane. One afternoon, Carlo was showing me updates to his Eucharistic Miracles website when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and laughed. My friend Luca wants me to come over and help him beat a level in Resident Evil 4. He's been stuck for 3 days. You play Resident Evil? I asked, surprised. Carlo, that game is pretty violent. He shrugged, grinning. It's just a game, Marco. I'm not going to become a violent person because I shoot zombies in a video game. God gave us brains to distinguish fiction from reality. I go to daily mass, I pray the rosary, I do holy hours before the Blessed Sacrament, and yes, I also play video games, watch movies, have fun with my friends. Holiness isn't about becoming weird. It's about becoming more fully yourself, the person God created you to be. This was Carlo's gift. He made sanctity seem accessible, normal, even cool. He wasn't preachy or judgmental. He just lived his faith so naturally that it made you want what he had. One day in early May, we were walking through Milan together. I was carrying my camera, as always, taking candid shots of Carlo for a personal project I was working on. We passed a homeless man sitting against a wall, And without hesitation, Carlo stopped. He pulled out his wallet and gave the man 20 euros, everything he had. Then he sat down next to the man on the dirty sidewalk in his jeans and Nikes and just talked with him. For 20 minutes, Carlo sat there, listening to this man's story, treating him with dignity and respect. Other people walked past, avoiding eye contact, some even crossing the street. But Carlo sat there, completely present, completely engaged. I took photographs of this moment, and when I look at them now, you can see something extraordinary. There's a light around Carlo in those pictures, not lens flare or a technical error, but an actual glow. Other photographers have tried to explain it away, but I know what I captured. It was grace, visible grace, emanating from a 15-year-old boy who saw Jesus in the face of a homeless man. When Carlo finally stood up to continue our walk, I asked him, "Why did you do that? Give him all your money, sit with him." Carlo looked at me like I'd asked why water is wet. "Because he's Jesus, Marco. Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me." That's not metaphor. That was literally Jesus back there, and I just got to spend 20 minutes with him. I should be thanking that man. In late May, Carlo invited me to join him for something he did every Thursday afternoon, a holy hour at the Church of Santa Maria Segreta in Milan. I hadn't been to church for anything other than work assignments in years. I was culturally Catholic, like most Italians, but spiritually dormant. I agreed to go mostly because I didn't want to disappoint Carlo. The church was nearly empty, just a few elderly women praying in the pews. The Blessed Sacrament was exposed in a monstrance on the altar, golden and radiant. Carlo walked to the front pew, genuflected with profound reverence, and knelt. I sat awkwardly a few rows back, not kneeling, not praying, just observing. For 1 hour, Carlo knelt there, completely still, eyes fixed on the Eucharist. I watched him, and I watched the other people who came in during that hour. They would enter the church, see this teenage boy kneeling in absolute devotion, and something would shift in their faces. Some knelt down themselves, others stood at the back, watching. A few began to cry without knowing why. Carlo's faith was contagious. It was visible. After that hour, we walked out into the late afternoon sunshine. Carlo was beaming, energized, more alive than ever. "That was amazing," he said. "Did you feel him, Marco? Jesus was so present today." I admitted I hadn't felt anything. "I watched you, though. Carlo, what do you experience during those hours? What actually happens?" He thought carefully before answering. "It's like being with someone you love. You don't always need words. Sometimes the best conversations are silent. Jesus and I just spend time together. I tell him about my day, my worries, my joys. I thank him for loving me. I ask him to help people I'm praying for. And mostly, I just look at him and let him look at me. It's the best hour of my week." Over the next few weeks, Carlo slowly drew me back to faith. Not through arguments or lectures, but through friendship. He would send me text messages. "Hey Marco, I prayed for you at Mass this morning." Or, "I was doing my holy hour and Jesus put you in my heart. Whatever you're struggling with, he's got you." How did this kid know I was struggling? I hadn't told him about my crumbling marriage, about my growing cynicism toward my career, about the depression I'd been fighting for years. But somehow he knew. In early June, Carlo and I were having coffee when he said something that cut through all my defenses. "Marco, can I tell you what I see when I look at you?" I shrugged. "Sure. I see a man who experienced something miraculous when he was 4 years old. God gave you a grace, a vision of the future, a mission. But you've spent your whole life not knowing what to do with it. You became a photographer because Padre Pio told you that you would photograph sanctity, but you've been looking in the wrong places. You've photographed popes and bishops and religious events, thinking that's what it meant. But Marco, you were being prepared to photograph me." Tears sprang to my eyes immediately. He was right. Everything he was saying was right. "God put his finger on you when you were 4 years old," Carlo continued gently. "He marked you for a specific purpose. To document my work, yes, but more than that. To tell my story after I'm gone. To spread the message of Eucharistic devotion to people who would never listen to a church document or a bishop's letter, but might listen to a story, might look at photographs, might be moved by testimony." "After you're gone?" I repeated, catching on his words. "Carlo, what do you mean after you're gone? You're 15. You have your whole life ahead of you." Carlo's expression shifted. The cheerful teenage lightness disappeared, replaced by something ancient, something that looked far too mature for his young face. "Marco, I'm going to die soon. God has shown me. I won't see my 16th birthday. But it's okay, I'm not afraid, I'm going home." I didn't want to believe him. I told myself it was teenage drama, perhaps influenced by too much religious fervor. Kids that age sometimes get caught up in mystical thinking, romanticizing martyrdom and sainthood. But deep down, I knew Carlo wasn't that kind of kid. He was grounded, practical, normal. If he said God had shown him something, I believed him. Throughout June and July 2006, our friendship deepened. I introduced Carlo to my wife, Sophia, during one of our meetings. Sophia had been raised Catholic, but had drifted away from faith, like I had. She was skeptical of my sudden interest in spending so much time with a teenage boy who talked about Jesus constantly. "Marco, is this healthy?" she asked me one night. "You're obsessed with this kid. It's starting to worry me." I tried to explain about the vision from Padre Pio, about the photograph, about the impossibility of the timing, but Sophia wasn't interested. "You're having a midlife crisis," she said flatly, "and you're projecting some kind of spiritual meaning onto a chance encounter with a religious teenager. It's embarrassing." That hurt more than I wanted to admit. Sophia and I had been married for 8 years, and the distance between us had been growing for a while. Her dismissal of the most significant experience of my life felt like a final severing of whatever connection we'd once had. Carlo, with his supernatural insight, picked up on this immediately the next time we met. "Your marriage is in trouble," he said without preamble. It wasn't a question. I nodded, too tired to deflect. "Sophia thinks I'm crazy. She doesn't understand what's happening." "She will," Carlo said confidently. "Not now, but later. After I'm gone, she'll understand. Marco, you're going to have to make a choice soon, between comfort and mission, between the life you've built and the life God is calling you to. It won't be easy, but I promise you, if you choose the mission, you'll never regret it." In August, Carlo's health began to decline. It started subtly. He seemed more tired during our meetings. He mentioned headaches that wouldn't go away. His mother took him to doctors who ran tests, but initially found nothing alarming. By mid-September, Carlo was noticeably weaker. We met at our usual cafe on September 18th, and I was shocked by how pale he looked. "Carlo, are you okay? You don't look well." He smiled weakly. "They found something, Marco. Acute promyelocytic leukemia. Very aggressive. The doctors say I need to start chemotherapy immediately." The cafe around us seemed to blur. I felt like I was underwater, sounds muffled, colors too bright. "No, Carlo, no. You're 15. This isn't fair. This isn't right." "It's okay," he said with a calmness that was almost eerie. "I told you God showed me I wouldn't reach 16. This is how it happens. But Marco, listen to me carefully. This is not a tragedy. This is a fulfillment. Everything I've done, the website about Eucharistic miracles, our friendship, the photographs you've been taking, it all leads to this moment. My death isn't the end of my mission, it's the beginning." I was crying openly in the cafe, not caring who saw. "I can't lose you, Carlo. I just found you. You've changed my life." He reached across the table and took my hand. "You're not losing me. Death isn't the end, Marco. It's just a transition. I'm going to see Jesus face to face, and from heaven, I'll be even more able to help you, to pray for you, to intercede for all the people who will hear my story." Carlo started chemotherapy on September 22nd. I visited him in the hospital as often as they would allow. Watching his hair fall out, watching his vibrant energy drain away, watching his body betray him was the hardest thing I'd ever experienced. But here's what was extraordinary. Carlo never complained, not once. He offered up every moment of suffering for the conversion of sinners. He continued to ask for his laptop so he could work on his website from his hospital bed. He prayed the rosary multiple times a day. He received communion every morning, brought to him by a hospital chaplain, and he smiled. Even when the pain was clearly intense, even when the nausea from chemo made him miserable, he smiled. "Marco," he said to me one afternoon in late September. Suffering is not meaningless. When you unite it to Jesus' suffering on the cross, it becomes redemptive. Right now, in this hospital bed, I'm participating in the salvation of the world. How incredible is that? Other patients began to notice Carlo. Word spread through the hospital about the teenage boy in room 307, who never stopped smiling, who prayed constantly, who talked about Jesus to anyone who would listen. Nurses would make excuses to stop by his room, just to spend a few minutes in his presence. Doctors who had seen thousands of patients said they'd never encountered anyone like him. One oncologist, Dr. Ricci, a self-proclaimed atheist, told me privately, "I don't believe in God, but if God exists, that boy knows him personally. I've seen patients face death with courage, but this is different. He's not just brave, he's joyful. It's medically inexplicable." On October 5th, Carlo asked me to bring him something specific. "Marco, remember that photograph? The one of your grandmother, the one from your vision? Can you bring it to me?" I brought it the next day. Carlo took it in his frail hands that now had IVs attached, bruises from blood draws, and studied it for a long time. "Do you know what I see in this photograph?" he asked. "What?" "I see the communion of saints. Your grandmother, who loved Padre Pio, who prayed for her family. Padre Pio, who prayed for people he would never meet in his earthly life, including you. Me, not yet born when this photo was taken, but already known by God, already part of his plan. And you, Marco, the thread that connects us all. Your grandmother prayed for you before you were born. Padre Pio saw you when you were 4 and planted a mission in your heart. I came along at the exact right moment to help you understand that mission, and now you'll carry it forward after I'm gone." He handed the photograph back to me. "Keep this safe. One day you'll show it to people as proof that God sees everything from the beginning, that nothing is random, that every person's life is woven into a grand tapestry of grace." On October 9th, I received a call from Antonia at 11 p.m. "Marco, please come. Carlo is asking for you. The doctors say it's very close now." I drove to the hospital, breaking every speed limit, praying prayers I didn't even know I remembered. "Please, God, not yet. Give him more time. He's only 15, please." When I reached Carlo's room, his parents were there, holding his hands, tears streaming down their faces. Carlo looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, his body frail, his skin pale as paper. But when he saw me enter, his eyes lit up. "Marco," he whispered, "I'm so glad you came. I have something important to tell you." I sat beside his bed, taking his hand gently. "I'm here, Carlo. I'm here. Tomorrow is October 10th, he said, his voice weak but clear. "Tomorrow, I'm going home. But before I go, I need to tell you 3 things God wants you to know. 3 things that will guide the rest of your life." I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. "I'm recording this, Carlo. I won't forget a word." He nodded approval. "First, the photographs you've taken of me over these past 6 months are not just photographs. They're relics. They carry grace. When people see them, they'll encounter Jesus. Some will be healed physically. Others will be healed spiritually. Others will convert. Trust what God is doing through your art, Marco. You were chosen for this. Second, your marriage to Sophia will end, and that's okay. You're being called to something that requires total dedication. In 2 years, you'll meet someone named Alessandra. She's the one God has prepared for you. She'll understand your mission because she'll share it. Wait for her. Don't settle for less. Third, and this is the most important one, after I die, you're going to doubt everything. You'll think maybe this was all coincidence, maybe it was your imagination, maybe there's nothing supernatural happening at all. When that doubt comes, and it will come hard, go back to San Giovanni Rotondo. Go to Padre Pio's tomb, kneel there and wait. He'll come to you again, not in a dream this time, but in a way you can't deny. And he'll confirm everything I've told you." Carlo paused, breathing laboriously. "Promise me, Marco. Promise you'll do these 3 things." "I promise," I whispered through tears. "I promise, Carlo." He smiled that beautiful, radiant smile one last time. "Good. Now let me tell you what I see right now. Jesus is here, in this room. He's standing right next to you. Marco with his hand on your shoulder, And Mary is here too, my beautiful mother. The room is full of angels, it's so beautiful. You can't see them, but they're here, waiting to escort me home. And Marco? Matteo is here too. My heart stopped. What did you just say? Matteo, Carlo repeated, his eyes seeming to focus on something I couldn't see. He's about 8 years old now. In heaven years, I think. He's standing right there. Carlo pointed to the corner of the room. He has dark curly hair and green eyes. He's holding a soccer ball, and he says to tell you that he forgives you, that it wasn't your fault, and that he's been waiting to meet you again. I couldn't breathe, the room was spinning, because Matteo was my son. My son who died in a drowning accident when he was 3 years old in 1998, 8 years before this moment. I had never, not once, mentioned Matteo to Carlo. I had never told him I'd been married before Sophia, that I had a child, that I lost him. It was the deepest wound of my life, something I kept buried so deep I barely acknowledged it even to myself. How do you know about Matteo? I gasped. How could you possibly know? Carlo's voice was fading, but his words were crystal clear. I told you, Marco, he's here. He says you blamed yourself for his death because you weren't watching him closely enough that day at the lake. But it was his time. God called him home. And he wants you to know that he's happy, that he's been watching you, that he's proud of his papa for finding his way back to Jesus. I collapsed onto the floor beside Carlo's bed, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm so sorry, Matteo. I'm so sorry I couldn't save you. I'm so sorry. Carlo's weak hand touched my head. He forgives you, Marco. And more than that, he's excited because he knows that you and I are going to work together. Me from heaven, you from earth. And he's going to help too. The three of us interceding, working for the salvation of souls. Isn't that beautiful? I looked up at Carlo through my tears. This dying 15-year-old boy who had become my closest friend, who was revealing impossible knowledge, who was preparing to step into eternity with more grace than most people show stepping into a room. Carlo, I don't know how to do this without you. You're not without me, he said firmly. Tomorrow when I die, I'll be more present to you than ever. Death doesn't separate friends, Marco. It just moves them to different rooms in the same house. You'll be in the room called Earth for a little while longer. I'll be in the room called Heaven. But we're still in the same house, still connected, still working together. And one day, not too long from now in eternity's terms, you'll join me, and we'll laugh about all this. He closed his eyes, exhausted from the effort of speaking. Now go home, rest, pray, and tomorrow, when you hear that I've gone, don't be sad, be joyful, because tomorrow the real mission begins. I left the hospital at 2 a.m. on October 10th, 2006. I drove home in a daze, Carlo's words echoing in my mind. When I arrived at my apartment, Sophia was asleep. I went to my office, pulled out the photograph, the sacred photograph from 1978, and stared at it for hours. Padre Pio had seen all of this, had known all of this, had prepared me for this exact moment when I was 4 years old. The plan was so intricate, so carefully orchestrated across decades, across generations, across the barrier between life and death. At 6:47 a.m. my phone rang. Antonia's voice was soft, peaceful despite her tears. Marco, Carlo is with Jesus now. He went peacefully at 6:28 a.m. His last words were, I see heaven, it's beautiful. I sat in silence, the phone still against my ear, and felt something shift in the atmosphere of my apartment. A warmth, a presence, a sense of not being alone. And in my heart, not audibly but unmistakably, I heard Carlo's voice. Told you I'd be more present. The days following Carlo's death were surreal. The funeral at the church of Santa Maria Segreta was packed with over 1,000 people, students from his school, families he'd helped, people who had heard about the teenage computer programmer who loved Jesus more than life itself. I set up my cameras and photographed everything, knowing that Carlo was right. These images were important. They would travel far beyond what I could imagine. During the funeral mass, something happened that I captured on camera, but that people still debate to this day. As the priest elevated the Eucharist during consecration, A visible beam of light descended from the ceiling directly onto the altar. Not a spotlight, all the lights in the church were normal. Not sunlight through a window, it was a cloudy October morning. But light, pure white brilliant light, captured by my camera and witnessed by dozens of people. Skeptics have tried to explain it away. Lens flare, they say, or a technical glitch. But I was there. I saw it with my own eyes before I ever looked through my camera lens, and I know what it was. It was Jesus, showing up for his friend Carlo's funeral, making his presence known. After the burial, I spent weeks in a fog. Sophia and I barely spoke. She was grieving her own losses, her own disappointments in our marriage, and she couldn't understand why I was so devastated by the death of a teenager I'd known for only 6 months. "He was just a kid you interviewed, Marco," she said one night, exasperated by my grief. "I don't understand why this is destroying you." I couldn't explain it to her. How could I tell her that Carlo had seen into my soul, had known about Matteo, had revealed my mission, had changed everything I believed about reality itself? 2 weeks after Carlo's death, Sophia moved out. "I can't compete with your obsession," she said, "with this dead boy, with God, with whatever spiritual crisis you're having. I need a husband who's present, who's here with me. You're somewhere else, Marco. You have been for months." She was right. I had been somewhere else. I'd been standing at the intersection of the natural and supernatural, watching the veil between worlds grow thin, encountering mystery I couldn't explain and didn't fully understand. And I couldn't go back to normal life after that. By December 2006, I had made a decision. I quit my job at Il Messaggero. My colleagues thought I was insane, walking away from a stable career in journalism. But I knew what I had to do. I had thousands of photographs of Carlo, images I'd taken over our 6 months of friendship. I had recordings of our conversations. I had my testimony of the vision from Padre Pio in 1978. I had the story of Matteo. I had everything I needed to fulfill the mission. But first, as Carlo had instructed, I needed to go to San Giovanni Rotondo. I drove to San Giovanni Rotondo on December 18, 2006, exactly 2 months after Carlo's death. It was a cold, grey day, threatening rain. The town of my birth looked smaller than I remembered, quieter, as if holding its breath. I went directly to the sanctuary where Padre Pio's body is entombed. The church was nearly empty, just a handful of pilgrims scattered among the pews. I knelt at Padre Pio's tomb, a glass casket containing his incorrupt body, and I prayed. Or I tried to pray. Mostly I just cried. "Padre Pio, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know how any of this works. But Carlo said you would come to me here, that you would confirm everything. I need that. I need to know this was all real, that I didn't imagine it, that my life has actual purpose. Please give me a sign." I knelt there for over an hour. Nothing happened. No vision, no voice, no supernatural manifestation. Just silence, and my own doubts growing louder with each passing minute. Maybe Sophia was right. Maybe I'd had some kind of breakdown. Maybe the vision when I was 4 was just a child's vivid imagination. Maybe my connection with Carlo was coincidence mixed with grief and wishful thinking. Maybe there was no plan, no mission, no grand design. Maybe I destroyed my marriage and my career for nothing. I stood up to leave, defeated, and that's when I saw her. An elderly woman, probably in her 80s, sitting in the back pew. She was looking directly at me with an expression of recognition, as if she knew me. I didn't recognize her at all. As I walked past her toward the exit, she reached out and gently touched my arm. "Marco Benedetti," she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. I stopped. "How do you know my name?" She smiled, and there was something familiar about that smile, something that tugged at my memory. "I'm Sister Gabriella. I was your grandmother Lucia's best friend. I prayed with her, attended Padre Pio's masses with her, sat with her when she was dying in 1976. My knees went weak. You knew my grandmother?" "I did. And Lucia told me something shortly before she died, something that never made sense to me until now. She said that Padre Pio had given her a message about her grandson, a boy named Marco who would be born 2 years later. She said Padre Pio told her that this Marco would be chosen for a special mission, that he would meet a young saint and that he would spend his life telling the saint's story. I grabbed the pew for support. When did she tell you this? When? November 1976, just weeks before her death. She was very specific. She said, "Tell Marco, when he comes looking for answers, tell him that what he saw was real, that Padre Pio keeps his promises across time, that the photograph he carries is proof of God's eternal plan." I pulled out the photograph with shaking hands. "This photograph?" Sister Gabriella looked at it, and tears filled her eyes. "That's Lucia. I was there the day that photo was taken in 1968, months before Padre Pio died. And Marco, there's something you need to know about that photograph, something only Lucia and I knew." "What?" "When that photograph was taken, there was a young boy standing next to your grandmother, a boy visiting San Giovanni Rotondo with his family. We don't know who he wasn't from the town. But he was in the original photograph, right there where you said you saw him in your vision." She pulled out her own photograph, an identical shot to mine but with better resolution. And there, standing next to my grandmother, was a young boy in casual clothes. The image was grainy, degraded by time, but the resemblance was unmistakable. Dark hair, bright eyes, a smile that lit up his face. "This is impossible," I whispered. "That boy would have been born in the 1960s. Carlo wasn't born until 1991. Sister Gabriella shook her head. "You're thinking linearly, Marco, but God doesn't operate in linear time. Saints exist in the eternal now. Is it so impossible that God allowed Carlo to appear in a photograph 30 years before his birth? Is it any more impossible than Padre Pio seeing your future when you were 4? Than Carlo knowing about your son Matteo?" She was right. Every impossible thing was equally impossible, which meant they were all possible in the realm of divine mystery. "Lucia kept this photograph separate," Sister Gabriella continued, "because something strange happened to all the other copies. The boy disappeared from them, every copy anyone else had. The boy wasn't there, just Lucia alone. But this one, the one she kept, the boy remained. She told me that Padre Pio explained it to her. He said, 'This is a sign for your grandson. When the time comes, he'll need proof that what he sees is real. Keep this safe for him.'" I sat down heavily on the pew, holding both photographs, the one where I saw only my grandmother and the one where the boy, Carlo, was visible. Sister Gabriella sat beside me and took my hand. "Marco, you were chosen before you were born. Your grandmother prayed for you. Padre Pio marked you. Carlo completed the mission. And now you must carry it forward. The photographs you've taken, the story you'll tell, the witness you'll bear, this is your life's work. Don't doubt it. Don't run from it. Embrace it." We sat together in silence for a long time. Finally, I asked, "How did you know I would be here today?" She smiled mysteriously. "I didn't, but I've come to this church every day for 40 years, praying that I would be here when Lucia's grandson arrived searching for truth. God has perfect timing." I stayed in San Giovanni Rotondo for 3 more days, talking with Sister Gabriella, visiting places my grandmother had prayed, walking the same streets Padre Pio had walked, and I felt Carlo's presence constantly, not oppressive or spooky, but comforting, like a friend walking beside me. On the morning of December 21st, I woke up with absolute clarity about what I needed to do. I would create a photographic exhibition about Carlo Acutis. I would tell his story, not just the facts of his life, but the supernatural elements, the visions, the prophecies, the impossible knowledge. I would include my testimony about Padre Pio, about Matteo, about the photographs, and I would let people decide for themselves what it meant. I returned to Milan and threw myself into the work. I spent every penny of my savings creating the exhibition. 50 large-format photographs of Carlo, each one carefully chosen, each one telling part of his story. The images of him working on his computer, his face illuminated by the screen as he researched Eucharistic miracles. The photos of him at Mass, kneeling in devotion. The candid shots of him laughing with friends, playing with dogs at the shelter, just being a normal teenager. And then the harder images. Carlo in the hospital, suffering from chemo but still smiling. Carlo days before his death, his body frail but his spirit radiant. And the final photograph, the beam of light at his funeral, undeniable evidence of supernatural presence. The exhibition opened in March 2007 at a small gallery in Milan. I expected maybe 100 people over the course of the week. Over 5,000 came. People stood in line for hours to see the photographs. They wept openly in the gallery. Many reported feeling an overwhelming sense of peace, of love, of divine presence while viewing the images. 3 people claimed to be physically healed while standing in front of the photographs. One woman, Marta, had chronic migraines for 15 years. She looked at the image of Carlo kneeling at Mass and felt her head clear completely. The pain that had tormented her for years vanished instantly and never returned. A man named Giuseppe, struggling with addiction to cocaine, saw the photograph of Carlo in the hospital and heard a voice in his heart saying, "If this boy can suffer with joy, you can suffer through withdrawal with hope." He checked himself into rehab the next day and has been clean since. Stories like this multiplied. The exhibition traveled to Rome, to Naples, to Turin. Each city, the same response: crowds, tears, conversions, healings, transformation. The Catholic Church began to take notice. In 2008, Cardinal Angelo Scola called me to his office. "Marco, the Archdiocese of Milan wants to officially open an investigation into Carlo Acutis' life. We believe he may be a candidate for beatification. Your photographs and testimony will be crucial to this process. Are you willing to participate?" Was I willing? This was what Carlo had prepared me for, what Padre Pio had seen in 1978, what my grandmother had prayed for before I was born. "Yes, Your Eminence. I'll do whatever is needed." The beatification process took 12 years. 12 years of investigations, interviews, testimonies, medical examinations of claimed miracles. I participated in every stage, providing my photographs, my recordings of conversations with Carlo, my written testimony of everything I'd witnessed. In 2018, Pope Francis declared Carlo Acutis venerable. In 2020, a miracle was officially recognized. A Brazilian boy suffering from a severe pancreatic disorder was healed after his mother prayed to Carlo and touched one of his relics. The medical documentation was irrefutable. There was no natural explanation for his sudden, complete recovery. On October 10, 2020, exactly 14 years after Carlo's death, he was beatified in Assisi. Over 10,000 people attended. I was there, standing in the crowd, holding the sacred photograph from 1978, tears streaming down my face as the announcement was made. Blessed Carlo Acutis. Everything Carlo had prophesied came true. Everything Padre Pio had seen in 1978 came to pass. Every impossible thing became reality. But I haven't told you the most extraordinary part yet. Remember Carlo's second prophecy, that my marriage to Sophia would end, which it did in early 2007, and that in 2 years I would meet someone named Alessandra who would share my mission. I didn't believe that part. I thought Carlo got that one wrong, if I'm honest. I wasn't interested in meeting anyone. My life was completely consumed by the exhibition, by telling Carlo's story, by the growing movement of devotion to this teenage saint. Romance seemed irrelevant, even impossible. Then, in March 2009, exactly 2 years after Carlo's death, as he had said, I received an email that changed everything. The subject line read, "I was healed through your photographs of Carlo Acutis." I received hundreds of emails like this, so many that I couldn't respond to them all. But something made me open this one. The sender's name was Alessandra Fontana. "Dear Marco, my name is Alessandra. I'm a pediatric oncologist in Rome. Last month I was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. The doctors gave me less than 6 months to live. I was devastated, not for myself, but because I love my work with sick children, and I couldn't bear the thought of leaving them. A colleague suggested I visit your Carlo Acutis exhibition, currently showing in Rome. I went reluctantly, expecting religious propaganda. Instead, I encountered Jesus himself through your photographs. As I stood in front of the image of Carlo in the hospital, sick with leukemia but smiling, I felt a physical warmth spread through my abdomen. I heard a voice, not audible but absolutely real, saying you are healed. I returned to my oncologist for scheduled scans. The cancer was completely gone. Not reduced, not in remission, gone. My doctors have no explanation. They're calling it spontaneous regression, but I know what it was. It was Carlo, interceding for me. I'm writing to thank you. Your photographs were the instrument of my healing, but I also want to meet you. I feel strongly that God is calling me to help you with your mission. Would you be willing to have coffee with me? I read that email 5 times. Alessandra, that was the name. Carlo had said Alessandra specifically, and she was healed through the photographs, exactly as Carlo had prophesied. The photographs carry grace. We met at a cafe in Rome the following week. The moment I saw Alessandra walk through the door, I knew. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, there was a light about her, a joy, an aliveness that reminded me of Carlo. We talked for 4 hours that first meeting. She told me about her experience viewing the exhibition, about her impossible healing, about how the encounter had transformed not just her body, but her entire relationship with faith. I was a lapsed Catholic, she admitted. I went to medical school and became convinced that science had all the answers. But Marco, science cannot explain what happened to me. The scans don't lie. Stage 4 ovarian cancer with metastases to my liver and lungs completely vanished in 3 weeks. That's not medicine, that's miracle. I told her my story, all of it. Padre Pio's vision when I was 4, my son Matteo's death, meeting Carlo, the prophecies, Sister Gabriella, everything. She listened with tears in her eyes. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. Marco, I was healed so that I could help you. Carlo brought us together. I can feel it. She was right. Within months, Alessandra and I were inseparable. She left her position at the hospital in Rome and moved to Milan to work with me full-time on the Carlo Acutis mission. She helped me organize exhibitions, manage the flood of testimonies and miracle claims, coordinate with the Vatican during the beatification process, and yes, we fell in love. We were married in October 2010 at the Church of Santa Maria Segreta, the same church where Carlo's funeral had been held. During our wedding ceremony, as we knelt at the altar, a photograph fell from the missal the priest was using. No one had placed it there. The priest picked it up, looked at it, and his face went pale. It was a photograph of Carlo, one of my images, one that I had never printed or distributed. He was smiling directly at the camera, and written on the back in handwriting that wasn't mine were the words, "Told you she was the one. Congratulations, Marco. Love, Carlo." To this day, we have no natural explanation for how that photograph appeared in the priest's missal. But we know. Carlo was there celebrating with us, fulfilling his role as the friend who introduced us, even from heaven. Today, December 2024, I'm 50 years old. I've spent 18 years telling Carlo Acutis' story. The photographs I took of him have been reproduced millions of times, printed in books, featured in documentaries, displayed in churches and schools and museums across 6 continents. Alessandra and I have 2 children, both named after Carlo. Our son, Carlo Marco, is 8 years old. Our daughter, Carlotta, is 5. We tell them constantly about their namesake, about the teenage saint who brought their parents together, who gave their father his life's mission. The Carlo Acutis Shrine in Assisi has become one of the most visited pilgrimage sites in Italy, receiving over 1 million visitors annually. Young people especially are drawn to him. They see a saint who wore Nikes and played video games, who loved Jesus without being weird about it, who proved that holiness isn't about being from the past, but about bringing heaven into your present. I still carry that photograph from 1978, now protected in a special frame. The one where Padre Pio pointed at Carlo decades before Carlo's birth and said, "This is a saint." It's the proof, the tangible evidence that God's plan transcends time, that the saints see what we cannot see, that nothing is random or coincidental. 3 years ago, in 2021, I returned to San Giovanni Rotondo with Alessandra and our children. We visited Sister Gabriella, now 94 years old but still sharp, still faithful, still praying daily at Padre Pio's tomb. She held my son, Carlo Marco, on her lap and told him, "You're named after a saint who your father photographed. who changed the world, who proved that teenagers can be world changers if they love Jesus with their whole hearts. My son looked up at me with those innocent 8-year-old eyes. "Papa, will I meet Carlo someday?" I smiled. "Yes, my son. One day, when it's your time, you'll meet him in heaven. And he'll tell you all the stories, all the details I don't know, all the parts of God's plan that I could never see from earth. And it will all make sense. But until then, we work." Alessandra and I have established the Carlo Acutis Foundation, dedicated to promoting Eucharistic devotion among young people and supporting children with terminal illnesses. We've created educational programs, funded research, built a network of volunteers who visit sick children in hospitals and tell them about Carlo, about hope, about heaven. Every child we help, I think about Matteo, my son who died at 3, who Carlo saw standing in his hospital room hours before death. I think about how suffering is not the end of the story, how death is not the final word, how love continues beyond the grave, how the communion of saints is real, active, present. Last month we received word that another miracle attributed to Carlo's intercession has been approved by the Vatican Medical Board. A 6-year-old girl in Thailand, dying of a brain tumor, was completely healed after her Buddhist mother desperately prayed to Carlo, having heard about him from a Catholic neighbor. That child is alive today, tumor-free, and her entire family has converted to Catholicism. The canonization process has begun. Within a few years, possibly by 2026 or 2027, Carlo Acutis will likely be declared Saint Carlo, the first millennial saint, the patron saint of the internet, the teenage programmer who used technology to evangelize the world. And I'll be there when it happens, in St. Peter's Square, holding that sacred photograph from 1978, holding Alessandra's hand, holding my children close, witnessing the final fulfillment of everything Padre Pio saw, everything Carlo prophesied, everything my grandmother prayed for before I was born. So let me bring this back to you, because this story isn't just about me or Carlo or miraculous photographs. It's about God's plan for your life. Right now, watching this video, you might think your life is ordinary, that nothing supernatural has ever happened to you, that you're just going through the motions, that faith is something for other people, special people, holy people. But that's not true. God has a specific plan for you, just like He did for me. He's been preparing you since before you were born for purposes you can't yet see. The encounters you've had that seemed like coincidence? Not coincidence. The people who've come into your life at exactly the right moment. Not accidents. The pain you've experienced, the losses you've suffered, the questions you've asked, all part of the tapestry God is weaving. Carlo Acutis taught me that sanctity is simply saying yes to whatever God is asking you to do right now, not tomorrow, not when you're older or holier or more prepared. Right now, in this moment, with whatever you have, wherever you are. So here's what I want you to do, and this is important. In the comments, I want you to type these exact words: "Blessed Carlo, help me see God's plan for my life." That's it. That simple prayer. Because I'm telling you, Carlo hears those prayers. I've seen it happen thousands of times. People type that prayer, and within days or weeks things start shifting. Doors open, clarity comes, purpose emerges, hope returns. And if you're still here with me after this whole story, if you've watched to this very end, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we post new testimonies about Carlo Acutis every week. Miracles that are happening right now, in real time, as his intercession continues to change lives around the world. Share this video with someone who needs hope, who's questioning faith, who's lost someone they love, who feels like their life has no purpose. Carlo's story is for them. Finally, if you're in a position to do so, consider supporting our foundation. Every donation goes directly to helping sick children and spreading Carlo's message of Eucharistic love. The link is in the description, but whether you can give financially or not, you can give through prayer. Pray for Carlo's canonization. Pray for the sick children our foundation serves. Pray for your own encounter with Jesus in the Eucharist, the way Carlo encountered him every single day. My name is Marco Benedetti. 50 years ago, when I was 4 years old, a saint who died before I was born showed me a vision of my future. 32 years ago, my son Matteo died, and I thought my life was over. 18 years ago, I met a 15-year-old boy who changed everything. And now I'm living a life I never could have imagined, a life of purpose, mission, love, and daily miracles. This can be your story too. Not the same details, but the same essence. A life touched by the supernatural. A life given to a mission bigger than yourself. A life that matters for eternity. Blessed Carlo Acutis, pray for us. Saint Padre Pio, pray for us. My son Matteo, my grandmother Lucia, all the saints and angels, pray for everyone watching this right now. May they encounter Jesus. May they discover their mission. May they live with the joy and purpose that can only come from knowing they're loved by God and chosen for something beautiful. Type that prayer right now. Blessed Carlo, help me see God's plan for my life. And then watch what happens, because God is not done with you. Your story is still being written, and Carlo, from heaven, is interceding for you right now. Trust me, I know how this works. Amen.